This was meant to be like a really quick, short magazine review video with just a few mags for August, but I left it too long and there's a backlog again. So I'm going to get through about 7 mags, I think. Oh, I should do my little thing. Yes, this is the Linefeed reading list for August 2009. And we're starting with Tokion magazine, which has had a redesign, which it really needed after what I thought was a really unsuccessful sort of revamp, where it became more art and fashion orientated and lost a lot of the really lovely illustration work that Deanne Chiak contributed or helped contribute to when she art directed the magazine. So it's nice to see a bit of hand-drawn sort of action back in the magazine, in the titles and some of the sort of they've put a bit more of the illustration back in. And refresh the typography too, which is really nice. So they've given themselves a bit more flexibility, and it it makes it a bit more interesting. It still feels really light on though, like like they haven't had a lot to write about. I mean, Jeremy Scott, he's getting on a bit. Chloe Shavini talks about life in the 90s. That you kind of wonder, is this meant to be for young people? Or is it meant to be for people who think they're still young people? I don't know. I think it's still in sort of not really finding its audience. It's not really about art. It's not really about fashion. It's just sort of stuff in between. It's not. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It's still not a bad magazine. It's just not an essential magazine, which I think it probably was once. One day they'll get back their groove, I guess. What have we got next? Oh, we've got a newspaper. This is Design Reporter, and it was produced especially for the Melbourne Design Festival, and is probably actually one of the highlights of the festival, truth be told. It's designed by Stuart Geddes, who runs Chase and Galley, and includes design writing by all sorts of local editorial bods. There's a lot of people that want to talk about design in Melbourne, and there's not really anywhere for them to do it. So this is just fantastic, this publication. There's a really good article I really agree with about how sign writers are just ruining the look of Melbourne, and that's a funny little take on the new City of Melbourne logo. It was just a really good sort of publication, a really good way to give designers a voice in a city that really needs more people talking about design and talking it up. Okay, next is Pigeons and Peacocks. Now this is actually a sort of prospectus for the London College of Fashion. You can get it for free by contacting the London College, and essentially it's a brilliant idea. Promote a fashion course or fashion institute by producing a fashion magazine. I mean, you've got all the talent there, you just need to put it on the pages. And how exciting is it to see all these new up and coming fresh faces that are in the middle of their study in a lot of cases actually contributing to a magazine. So you get, I mean, the design of it's a little lackluster, but I think content wise it's really spot on, and I challenge anyone not to find at least something interesting about fashion in this magazine. Because it's a prospectus, or it's produced by the college too, it means no ads. So instead you get sort of blank purple pages instead, which is a bit weird. I've seen versions of this that have come in all sorts of different formats, and were slightly more exciting design-wise, but I just think this time the content's spot on. You just want lovely sort of big lush colour pages full of crazy new ideas by up and coming designers, and that's what Pigeons and Peacocks does. It also switches stock a fair bit from sort of matte to gloss, keeping the same purple, which I thought was kind of neat. So one of those neat tricks that magazines can do. What's next? Oh yeah, this is weird, and I should actually talk about these magazines more. Green magazines. Now, it's weird. Like, the act of producing a magazine is not something that you could say was environmentally sound. I mean, there's a lot of waste in terms of energy and materials and resources. So printing a magazine about green issues is kind of, well, unless you're really getting people's attention and getting them to change their minds about stuff, there's not really a massive point to it. It's just a bit of greenwashing, which is actually a term they use in the glossary in the back of this magazine. What is nice, first, the main problem is the magazine's really heavy. It's a lot of pages, which means shipping is expensive and it's wasting more energy and all that sort of business. There's a magazine that's come out in Australia called Green Pages, which actually is a much better angle, and I might try and review it in a later video. If you can get hold of Green Pages, it's a much better way of doing it. What's nice about this magazine, though, is the typography, which is by some recent London College grads calling themselves Julia. It's a studio called Julia, and they've done custom typefaces throughout the magazine. And there's just some really lovely photography and really good editorial. Big name fashion photographers like Norbert Schroeder are in there. There's models looking sort of, I don't know, pensive, but faces you'll recognise. Some more of the lovely typography, and it's really nice colour fade thing going on. But you do sort of pick it up, and you're reading about all these eco ideas and all this sort of stuff, and you're holding this really bulky. It's got foil on it. It's not an environmentally sound publication. I'm sorry. I think they've sort of missed the point there, as will many people who read it, I assume. Going on to ID, not to be confused with ID. This one used to mean industrial design, now it covers all sorts of design, and is worth picking up. I mean, I really like it. It looks good every issue. It's really well art directed. The interesting thing is they seem to be without an editor, or at least the art director, Jeffrey Doherty, has been shifted up the masthead to the top there, which is interesting. Like, there's something in this idea of designers becoming editors. I mean, it's happened at Wallpaper magazine. It's kind of happening at Interview magazine too. And is it a new breed of art director that's happy doing both roles? And people are confident enough, publishers are confident enough to give these people dual roles like this. It'll be interesting to see whether or not this is just some weird thing that's happened, or if Jeffrey's indeed made sort of an editor for ID magazine, in which case it'll be even more worth checking out to see what's going on. I'm running out of breath. Oh dear, I've got to put less magazines in these things, truly. On to Interview, and there's a lot to be said about Interview at the moment. It's mainly gossip though, because there's all this weird stuff going on behind the background, in the background, where they've had new publishers, and there's this wrangle between Glenn O'Brien and Fabian Baron, and M&M Paris didn't get paid apparently, and there's just endless sort of weird New York style gossip about this magazine at the moment. You can't tell with this latest issue that there's all this turmoil. It's a really good, really solid, well thought out issue, and it's the first one using M&M Paris's look and feel without M&M Paris behind the wheel. In fact, it's kind of, again, rudderless sort of at the moment until Fabian Baron takes over again later on, which is I think what's going to happen, although the way the news about this magazine has been going, anything could happen. But what I want to get to is that this is actually a really good, solid issue with some great pages and great editorial. And it's a magazine in flux. You kind of think, well, this seems to be working. Can we just leave it like this? The Miranda July stuff is great too. I know, talking to Binky the doormat, that it doesn't really get Miranda July, but I think that's, if you read the article, just check out what she's doing there. could persuade you otherwise. I don't know. She's probably an either you love her or you hate her type figure, I reckon. Oh, waffling about Miranda July. Oh, gym class. This is good. Can I get my breath? Oh my god. Um, this is a great magazine. I've helped out on it. I'm actually in it. But that's not why it's great. It's great because it's an independent fanzine. But it's so quality. It's really high quality. And it's run by a guy who has just as much vigor and verve and enthusiasm about publications as I do, which is why we get on. And you'll find all sorts of really interesting stuff in there, including an interview with Steffi Orazi, who you might have seen her, and Alex Zamora, who runs Feverzine, which is another interesting guy to talk to. This is some of Steffi's work. She does the sort of cards about the Barbican estate and the Golden Lane estate, where I happened to live at one stage. So she's a personal fave designer. So it's great. It's so nice to be in the company of all these ace people in this scene. I could talk about it for ages, but I'm not going to, because here's the playground. It seems that, you know, British independent magazines are actually flourishing. The big guys might be worried, but there's all sorts of really interesting little mags turning up. And this one, I mean, it's only little in terms of not attached to a big publishing house. It's quite a lush publication with some big name photographers. I think the theme is family, so they try and depict a whole wide range of age groups within the magazine. So you get fashion articles about kids, but then you get pregnant ladies and if they have elderly people, I don't think they do actually. But it's just it's a very loose theme, just on age groups, families, but somehow all these weird random elements come together to produce something that is quite coherent and just looks really good. I really want to see how this one sort of evolves, because it's such a weird beast. It's all over the show, really. It has recipes, which I liked. Bring back the recipes, I reckon. It's got these illustrations of like clothes done by possibly an adult trying to be a child, and these are just bizarre. These like weird abstract fashion things with kids. It's just Quentin Blake's in there. I mean, it feels more like a upmarket kids magazine to me, but not for kids. It's really strange, but really, really good. I suggest checking it out. Nice surprise. And held together by elastic band. It's just random. And that's it. Oh, I just didn't have any breath this time. I've got to work on that. I hope you enjoyed it. Next one will be very soon, I promise, September. Bye bye.